And with that then today, with the gospel, very brief gospel passage, just one verse. I like it when it's just one verse, it's easier to preach on. So quickly, as we heard, the scenario is the disciples of John the Baptist. So these people who are asking Jesus this question aren't necessarily his enemies. They're people who are curious, These disciples of John were probably part of the what's called the Essene community, a community that kind of became known when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. Then we heard a lot about this. We knew a lot about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but then there was like a very monastic type of group of Jews called the Essenes that did a lot of prayer and fasting. And when we kind of listen to the description of John the Baptist, we kind of get the impression that he was probably one of those Jews as well. And so these disciples who are very rigorous in their fasting and their prayer practices come to Jesus and notice that the disciples of Jesus aren't fasting. And so they ask him that question, why do the Pharisees fast, but you guys don't fast? Now here's the head scratcher in all this. Why does Jesus answer in terms of a bridal image? He talks about the wedding guests. Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom, that is he? He's identifying himself in terms of fasting, okay? And the question of fasting, his response is to identify himself as the bridegroom, and in terms of a wedding feast. If the bridegroom is here, then there's no need to fast. Again, symbolizing, well, I'm here right now in your presence, so there's no need to fast. That is, God is here among you in your presence, so there's no need to fast. Often the return of God or the coming of the day of the Lord is often, especially at the end of Isaiah, often described in terms of a wedding feast. And again, we know just from our practical lives and really of almost every culture there is out there. Every culture, whenever there's some sort of big celebration, a joyous event, it always revolves usually around some sort of meal, right? I mean, go to Africa, Asia, study the culture, study the people. When there's something to celebrate, there's always a meal, And then our Lord says, well, now there's going to be a time where the bridegroom's going to be taken away. There's going to be a time, I know the Lord's here with us now in the Eucharist and so forth, but at the same time, there's always like the fasting reminds us of the emptiness and fill that God still needs to fill in our life. When we fast and set aside the food, we say, like we're going to hear in the words on this Sunday's gospel, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Meaning that this void that's within our souls, that's what we're still waiting for God to completely fill, with the second coming of the bridegroom, Jesus Christ. We fast, and we fast on days like this, on days like Fridays and Lent and so forth, to remind ourselves of how much we need our bridegroom, Jesus Christ, in our life. May God bless you.